Thank you for staying with us here on JNTV Insight. Now, May is Child's Month, and Jamaicans celebrate it by throwing the focus fully on our children. I'm speaking now with the Regional Director for the Child Development Agency's Southeast Region, Mr. Robert Williams. Thank you for joining us, sir.
It's a pleasure.
All right, tell me what the CDA does. That's the first thing, the Child Development Agency. What's your role?
Okay, the Child Development Agency is an executive agency under the Ministry of Youth and Culture.
What is an executive agency versus another type of agency?
Well, it's an agency that is mandated with responsibility under a ministry, but it has autonomy to carry out its function. So it is partially quasi-government. So it's government, but it has executive power with a CEO, an executive officer.
Okay.
Mrs. Rosalie Gage Gray is now our executive officer.
Okay. And what are some of the programs or projects that the CDA is currently engaged in?
Well, we are mandated with the responsibility for care and protection of Jamaican children. Which children, who are these children falling in need of care and protection? Children who are abused, neglected, children who are abandoned. These are our clients. And so there are many activities that encompasses care and protection of these children. First of all, we are responsible in Jamaica for doing investigation when a matter is reported for care and or protection. So through the Office of the Children's Registry, through a walk-in, through a referral by a teacher or principal, our investigators, we have a cadre of investigators who would go out and investigate these matters. What are they investigating? They're seeking to validate whether or not a child is being abused, whether or not a child is safe, whether a child should stay in that environment. And so the investigators have a big job. Okay. They need to intervene on the ground to make sure that the best interest of the child is served. So there is investigation. And out of investigation now comes a whole gamut of activities. Because when an officer investigates, if it is that this is true, then a number of things can happen. A child can be removed immediately from that environment. The Child Care and Protection Act gives the children officer, gives the police officer, the probation officer, the right to remove a child from their home into a place where that child is safe, be it another relative's home, be it a place of safety or a children's home. But if it is that the child is in danger or the child will be affected seriously, then that child need to be removed. For example, a child is being sexually molested. A child is being abused physically by people who don't believe that they are doing anything. A child is neglected. Children are left alone. So if you turn up and these children are there alone, no adult lives there, or the adult left and didn't come back, then these children need to be protected. Or they're living in situations where their safety is compromised. For example, there's no window, there's no door. They're just living under a tent somewhere. Then this would not be in the best interest of the children. These children would have to be removed. Where do we remove them to?
So in the instance that you are forced to remove a child from their home, where would you place them and how would you determine where to place them?
Well, it is important to know that the family is the preferred place for a child to be reared. However, we have to move them from their immediate home. We'll seek to find other family members in the first instance. When we would have exhausted that, then the next option is to place this child in a place of safety. Usually these are government-operated places of safety supervised by the Child Development Agency. You know, a lot of people would sometimes confuse a place of safety and a children's home.
Yes. What is the difference?
They both hold children, but the place of safety is the initial holding place for these children, because all of these children coming into state care or into a place of safety, somebody said into a home, need to go before a court. The law says within 24 hours that child must be before the children's court or the family court in Kingston or in St. James. They must go before. So these are the places. The places of safety is the short term, when the court decides the social inquiry is to be done and carried out, and then the court decides with the agency what's the next step in the life of this child.
Which could be returning them home or putting them into a children's home.
Yes, it could be in a children's home, return them home into foster care, because although we would want to return most of our children to their home, sometimes they cannot, and maybe the children's home is not even the suited place for this particular child. So we normally promote foster care or foster parenting, because these are parents who would own their homes and take a child into their home. The child is not necessarily theirs, but they would provide for this child and care for this child like they were in a family setting. And the government we supervise that placement.
All right, differentiate between, or among rather, because I think there are three agencies that people may confuse their roles. So we have the Office of the Children's Registry, the Office of the Children's Advocate, and the Child Development Agency. Why three? And what makes each of the three different?
Good question, because a lot of time we confuse them. But before I answer that, I want to also say that all Jamaican has a duty to report. So if you read that section 5 carefully, we'll realize that not only the prescribed persons, but everybody else, everybody else, the neighbor, if they know and fail to report, and it is known, then they too can bear whatever the punishment is.
So, and that's important to note.
Now to the three agencies. The Child Development Agency. We have primary responsibility to provide services to children who are made wards of the state.
Okay.
So children who are made wards of the state, going to the court, they would be made the subject of a fit person order. We don't want to confuse anybody. They made the subject of fit person order. They got the minister of the fit person. We have responsibility for those. So children who are in the facilities, the places of safety, children who are placed in foster care, children who are going back home, we call it home on trial or family reintegration, those that are to be adopted, because we are the agency that
coordinates
the adoption services. So we really do, that is the CDA, we really do the groundwork. So that we spoke about the investigation and the intervention on the ground as it relates to securing the rights of the child and the care and protection issues. That's basically our money. We have the social workers to do that kind of work on the ground. On the other hand, the Office of the Children's Registry is basically a repository where all reports of child abuse are made. So they are responsible for taking those reports and maintaining a register. And you know the registrar.
Yes.
So they maintain a register and they refer these reports. So they assess the reports and they are the statistics bank. They will know how many cases of physical abuse, how many cases of neglect, because all reports would go to them and they would refer those reports to us,
the CDA.
To the CDA. So you see, it's a check and balance thing. So they are there to make sure that we don't miss anybody. So the matters of abuse can be actually recorded and actioned. So the CDA would be the one now to go out and do the intervention. The Office of the Children's Advocate, they really monitor and regulate the services offered to children by state agents.
Okay. So I assume, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or right, that the OCA would function as perhaps the lawyer for the child.
Quite correct.
Okay.
They would advocate the rights of the child is before the court needing legal representation. The advocate would step in and see to it that that child gets that kind of service. If it is that any government agency has failed to carry out their responsibility as it pertains to the child, the advocate would investigate that agency.
So the OCA could very well investigate the CDA.
Quite so, and they do that all the time. The CDA, a school, any agency, the police, any agents that fail to carry out their responsibility that is given to them, then the advocate's office would make sure that they investigate and make sure they secure. They would intervene, they do their own investigation, and they are securing the right of that child, because we have a responsibility to do it.
Now, tell the viewer how they can get in touch with the CDA or perhaps even the OCR if they're going to be making a report on suspected or proven child abuse.
The OCR 1888 Protect is the number I normally give, because this is catchy. 1888 protect. You dial that number, even at night somebody's there to take a report. Now, for the Child Development Agency, we do not have a one line to call. I hope we'll get there soon. But we have offices in 13 parishes. So we operate in all
island-wide.
And
you have a website?
Yes, man. The cda.gov.ja. Once you go to CDA, you will have the gamut of services there. In Kingston, we are at 40 Duke Street. That is where the regional office is. Our head office is right beside us. And we are 948-1145. That's one of our landlines. You can call us at that number anytime. No, not at nighttime. Not at nighttime.
But certainly during work
hours. And there's always an officer on duty in the Kingston Family Court. We call that intake. So anybody can come to us with a child, or you know of a child you suspect, you can come to us, or you can just call the registry, 1888-PROTECT.
Now, before we go, we have to touch on the issue of verbal abuse. And a lot of people will say it's not that important because it's just words, and at least lick them and starve them. But how does verbalizing either your contempt for the child's father, for the child, and the fact that they're in your life, how does that affect a child? In your estimation, what have you seen?
It affects the child in a serious negative way, more than we understand. Because you see, these children, our children, are looking to us for acceptance and love. They are looking to us, the significant other, mother, father, brother, sister, cousin, teacher. And when that person is going to belittle a child, call them all kind of name, they're not coming to anything, these children internalize that kind of utterance, and their behavior is affected negatively. A lot of children run away. See, this missing person, a lot of them run away because they believe that their mother or father, their guardian, don't love them. If you love me, why did you say this to me? You didn't act like you love me. Why did you call me a thief? You see, one of the things in our culture, we like to tell these children about their fathers and the worthlessness of their fathers. And some of the parents are not understanding that it is their father. He may not have played his role, but you're talking to the child about his father or his mother. Just today we dealt with a case. Once I mentioned the mother, the child, we were having a case conference. We call in parent, child, and social workers. We have to find a way forward. The child was just crying. And I said, why are you crying? Because in her mind, her father is telling her about the bad things of her mother, but it's her mother.
And she doesn't want to hear that.
She doesn't want to hear that because this person is my mother. So emotional abuse is very damaging to our children. And that is something we need to wake up to and understand, that we need to love, embrace, and nurture our children, because they want it from us. They want it from us.
That's the most potent point on which to end this interview. Thank you very much, Robert Williams. He's the Regional Director for the Southeast Region of the CDA, that's the Child Development Agency. So for Child's Month, we're encouraging you here on JNTV to reaffirm the worth of our children, because of course they are our future and we want a bright, prosperous future. So help us to create bright and prosperous, confident children. We'll be right back with more on JNTV.